Hello and good afternoon. My name is Mel Wolverson. Welcome to Premiere Pro Basics. And I'm going to start by talking about some of the requirements for even using this program, because it is quite a bulky program. Editing videos, and the videos make a difference too, how big the videos are. But the program is big in and of itself a little bit, so let me talk about that first. I will say that just because these are the program requirements that Adobe suggests, they are a suggestion as a good idea. Right? They're minimum requirements. The other thing people ask about this program is what types of video work for this? Can I just take any type of video? Well, as you can see on the screen, there are a lot of different types of video that you can use. Pretty much anything you're going to buy off the shelf, any video you're going to take with a regular phone, like an iPhone, other iDevices like an iPad, that's going to be okay. That's going to work just fine. It's really hard to find a video type that will not work for this. I think I should jump into Premiere and show you what that looks like. Okay, excellent. Hopefully you guys can see my project. This is just a really basic project. I wanted to make sure that I had something fairly basic to show you to begin with so that you could see during this presentation. All right, let's start. In the top left corner, we have the source monitor. This is a way for you to preview all of the different clips that you've brought into your project. And I'll start from scratch in a second and bring in content and that kind of thing, but I just want to show you around first. Top left, you have the source monitor or your individual item preview. Moving down to the bottom left corner, you have an area with a variety of different panels actually. But when it first comes up, it's going to be the area where you're going to import files. And to import files, you can just right click right in the middle there and click import, and then choose as many files as you want, as many files as you might think you use in the project, and then those will come in here. All of these 3 files here that are listed are files that are going to be part of this project. If I want to preview one of these, up in the top left in the source monitor, I need to double click. I double click on this little sound clip that I added to this video. It's a sound of breaking glass. I wanted it to look like the background was breaking, and I found that when it was just a silent video, it seemed kind of odd because when you see something breaking, you associate that with a certain noise. So this audio clip has been added on top, and this is what the audio clip looks like. And I can even preview the audio clip. You guys can't actually hear it because that sound is not going to come through, I don't think, but you can kind of see the monitor moving, the green bars, and you can see how that's going across there. I can also double click and do the video and play that part, and you can see the pieces of glass breaking. It's going to be a little iffy as far as quality. Remember I mentioned that if you have a slower computer, then the quality of the video is going to be a little stopping, a little bit glitchy there. That's what you're seeing. I mean, in the recording, that's what you're seeing. Now that's because I'm recording this while I'm working in a program like Premiere, which is pretty big. When I'm watching it here on my screen, it looks perfectly smooth. So just keep that in mind. All right, so your preview, top left, your items, and various other panels down here in the bottom left. Right? Over on the right-hand side of the screen, I'll start with the top right. The top right is the preview of your full project. So if I hit play here, it's going to play across the timeline, which is the bottom right, and you can see that run across. Right? And if I stop one, it also stops on the timeline below. So let's look at the timeline. The timeline shows me my various different clips that I have here. Currently, if I click on Halo Blue Edit Title Free, which is that first clip there, notice it selects the little piece down below. And that's because it's a clip, it's a video, an MP4, and even though there is no audio, because it's storing it as video, it's also storing that audio. I could remove that, but it's not a big deal. It's not bothering me. So that's why when I click on one, it's also selecting the attached as well. And then the green clip underneath there, that is that glass breaking audio MP3. If you look at the timeline where it says A1 on the left-hand side of the timeline box, you'll see that's audio. So everything below there, those layers going down below, they kind of look like layers. That's going to be your audio. And then you see V1 above that. So that's going to be your video layers. So you have different video clips that you can even put on top of each other. So whatever is going to be on that top layer, so if I put something up here instead of down here, right? Whatever's up here is going to be on top versus what down here, the first layer, is just going to be the main video. You have multiple different spots where you can put objects, and we'll see that when I start this from scratch. The only other thing I want to mention as far as this whole look here is as I'm playing the preview of this video, I want you guys to see the green bars over in the far bottom right hand corner. That's your audio, and that's just a nice audio area that allows you to see how high, how loud the music is. If it's too high, if it's too loud, it's going to be way up towards the top where that says 0 at the very top. And that means that you're actually cutting off your sound. You might have to fiddle with your sound a little bit to bring it back down so it's not going to get clipped. Just keep that in mind. All right, most of the time, you'll just use that as a reference. You might not necessarily change it that much. Now that I've kind of showed you around the program, I think it's time to start bringing something in. So I'll start with a brand new project. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm actually going to close this project. Close Project. And I get my opening screen, my welcome screen, and I'm going to select New Project. And this is what you'll do when you first open up Premiere and you're just getting started. You'll click New Project. And there's a lot of options here that can seem a little bit scary, but we are just going to ignore most of those. The two things we need is we need to change the name, and I'm going to call this Webinar, just for reference. And I'm going to change the location. It's going to be in a different location. On my desktop, I'm going to choose the Premiere Webinar. I have a special folder for that. And I'll say select that. So that's where I want to put my new files. Otherwise, I'm going to keep everything basic, and you do not have to change anything else. So say OK. Now I need to bring in some files to work with, some video, maybe some images, maybe some sound clips, various different things that I can work with to create my video. Down here in the bottom left-hand corner, it says Import Media to start. So I can right-click there and say Import. I've got various different things that I want to add to this. So I'll add an image, and I'll bring in a picture and some video. I've got various different things I want to use here. And notice I just selected all of them. I just held down Control, or it would be Command on a Mac, and selected each one. I could have also done the same with Shift and just selected all of them. But I've got all of them selected that I need, and I'll say Open. Depending on the size of your videos, it might take a little bit to bring them in. So just keep that in mind. But these are all fairly short clips. They're just a few seconds long. And that's okay because they were made pretty much for this demonstration. And so I'm going to combine those together. So to try one out, to make sure I like it, I can double click on it, and it comes up in the preview. And I can push play just to check it out, make sure it looks good. I notice this was taken in St. Louis at the Arch. Notice I went up very slowly and then came down very quickly. Well, let's say I just want the first part of that. There's a couple different ways you can do that. You can do that here. The second and third button that you see in those panels, they look like little curly braces. Those are mark in and mark out. So you can use this panel to set your in point, so where you want the video to start when you bring it into the timeline, and your out point, mark out, which is where you want that particular clip to end. Now, you don't have to set your in and out here. You can also do that in the timeline, directly in the timeline. Now, a lot of people, a lot of professionals find it to be much easier to do it here than to try to do that later in the timeline, but it's up to you. So I might want this to start about here. So I will drag the scrubber across this little mini timeline here. You can see it moving to about there. I'll set that as my in point. That's where I want the camera to come in. I'll move it until it gets to the out point there, just before it starts to come down. And I'll click that as my out point. And I'll drag that down into my timeline. I'll just click right on the video itself and drag it down and drop it into the timeline. And now it's down in my timeline. Over in the top right-hand corner, you can see I now have a preview of the complete video. I just dropped that one clip in there, so just to make sure the in and out points worked, I'm going to hit play up in the top right, and you can see it goes up the St. Louis Arch, and then it stops. So that in and out point worked. I'll also show you how to do it in the timeline, but now you've at least seen it in the source as well. Okay, our next clip is going to be of the cathedral in St. Louis. They're actually doing some construction this winter. I believe this is the right clip. Notice I just clicked right on that in the project panel and drug it over and dropped it in the timeline at the end of the clip. I can move this around, allowing for more room. Let's say I didn't want it to be the next clip. I decide I want to put another clip. I can move that around. So they're not stuck. It's very flexible. Now, as I get it next to my other clip, it does snap next to the other clip. Don't worry about accidentally leaving a second of black space there because it won't let you. It'll snap to the previous clip. Actually, I'll remove these. So I'm going to select one, hit delete. I'll click on the other one and hit delete as well, because I'm going to bring in my Blue Halo intro video first. That was made in After Effects, by the way. For now, we'll just say, hey, that's our intro. And I also want to bring down that video that I edited up here in the top left source box in the source preview. So I'll drag that down, drop that in, kept my in and out point there. That's good. And St. Louis 5, I'll bring that in and drop that afterwards. Currently, if I slide the scrubber, I'm just clicking right on that little orange eye drop. That's your scrubber, and you can scrub it across your timeline. See it moving, and you can very quickly see things swapping in and out. But of course, if I just hit play, this will be a little bit smoother, but you'll also see that the clips are just swapping out very quickly. There's no transition. It's kind of short, it's kind of sharp, and it doesn't feel like it's very natural. In a video, you always have transitions and things that introduce the next clip. It sort of gives your brain a second to swap over. Let me stop that preview and go back here. To add a default transition, what you do is you right-click in between two clips. Okay, so I'm going to right-click in between the Halo Blue edit and the first St. Louis clip, the one of the arch. And it gives me this little pop-down. And I'm going to select Apply Default Transition. And if I zoom in on this, here we go, you can see we have a cross dissolve. The cross dissolve is just going to fade. One video is going to cross dissolve into the other one. And if I click near the cross dissolve on the timeline up here, I can drag the scrubber there and just hit play. And you can see that was a much more natural fade. So let me play that again. Hopefully you guys can see this in the recording. Not as smooth as it could be, but certainly more smooth than the next one. See how sharp that was? That's just not what we want at all. So let me extend this out. So we've got those crossfades, and we can change those whenever we want. We can edit those later, but I won't worry about that for now. All right, now something I want to add is a title, and that is not to say a title here. You know, I have this intro thing. I just want a little overlay. I want the video to start right in on St. Louis, an interesting picture of St. Louis, of the arch. But I want an overlay to sit on top of it that tells people what they're looking at, just in case they don't know what the St. Louis arch looks like. So I'm going to select the Halo Blue edit, and I'm going to delete that out. And I'll move my clips over. There we go. Okay. To put this overlay on top, I'm going to click on it in the project, right? Project panel, bottom left. Click on it and drag it over. Notice this one does not have audio. If I drag it over towards the right-hand side, you can see that it doesn't have a matching audio line, right? Because it's just a picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this over, and I'm going to drop it right onto St. Louis, the very beginning there. And if I drag the scrubber over, you'll see I have this overlay of St. Louis. And that clip is fairly short. It's only a few brief seconds, right? So let's say I want to make that title a little bit longer. Well, because this is a picture, I can make it as long as I want, and I don't have to worry about problems with that. So I'll just click on the right-hand side of it. You can't see it, but my cursor has changed to a red line with an arrow going towards the clip. And I just click, hold and drag it out. You should be able to see that being drug out a little bit. Probably don't need it to be ridiculously long. Just 7 seconds is probably plenty. And now I'll play that in the preview. And I can also give this a fade. This title, I can give that a fade. If I'll just click on it to select it there. And I'll right click on the end of that and apply default transition, which is again just the crossfade there. You can see if I extend that out, you can see where it says cross. So that's my crossfade. Now it doesn't have any other clips to crossfade to, but it should just fade away. So if I click play towards the end of that, it's now just fading away into the other clip. Not bad. Now this clip kind of lingers. I only want a few seconds, not very long at all. And you can see at the beginning of this clip, I've got some scaffolding, and I just really want to show the top of that and sort of the top of the building, and I don't need it to come back down. Or maybe I decide I want it to come back down, but I don't want the beginning. Since I've already got it in my timeline, I'm going to go ahead and do it from here. So I'll just, mainly so I can show you how that works. I'm going to click on the clip, and I'm going to place my cursor at the very beginning of the clip so that I have the red bracket arrow pointing towards the clip. Okay, I know you can't see it in the recording, but you just have to notice that your cursor changes and the arrow is pointing towards the clip you want to change. I'm then going to click, hold, and drag in, and notice as I'm slowly dragging it in, it's giving me a readout in the top right telling me where I'm clipping it to, and it's also giving me a preview, which is kind of nice. So I can make sure that I'm clipping into the right spot, that I'm getting just the right spot there. I want to clip out that light. I think that light's a bit much. And I can always click and drag on that clip and drag it over a little bit. I also want to clip the right side of the clip. So I'm going to click on the right side of the clip and drag that in. Clip the lady out of there. I'll clip it to the movement. So that clip is significantly shorter. And if you look up at the timeline up here where the scrubber is, you can see the time on it. So we can see that that is about 7.5 seconds in. And if I keep going, that is 17 seconds in. So you can kind of do the math there. We've got about 10-second clip, which is actually kind of a long clip. Usually 3 seconds is plenty for something like that. So I could actually clip it in further if I wanted to, and that would be just fine. Now, I have lost my transition because I got rid of that intro clip. So I'm going to add that default transition in. So I'm going to click in between these two clips. I'm going to apply default transition, and there I can see the crossfade. Now, you might wonder how I am zooming in and out on this little clip. And if you look down here, where you can see the scroll bar, there are little ends on this scroll bar, little highlighted ends. I'm sort of clicking on them, hovering over them so you can see them blinking. If you click, hold, and drag on one of those and drag it in or out, it will expand or contract how much you're seeing on the timeline. So here I'm seeing lots of timeline, right? I'm seeing a long time period, but the clips look really short and it's hard to see the detail. If I zoom way in and then move it down, I can see lots of detail, but I can't see the overall picture, right? I can't see the final larger video. So that's the downside. I like to try to get the whole thing in if I can. Sometimes you have to zoom in and that's just not possible, especially if you have a longer video. One more thing I want to add to this video is I want to add a closing image. So I have a credits JPEG. So you notice I have, for my title, I have a PNG. That's so that the transparency is there so that it sits on top the original video. and then fades away. But for the credits, I have just a solid image. And these are done in Photoshop. And because this is a solid image, I can just put it on the main video level, and that's fine. I can move it up here. Now, even though I move it up to this second row here, the second layer, it's still going to snap to the video down below. So I don't have to worry about getting it not quite in the right spot. It will still snap to that video, which is kind of nice. So now as the end plays, I'll give you a little preview. It's going to snap to my very cheesy little JPEG that all I had to do was make sure that the image was the exact size of the video so that I don't have to worry about resizing issues. And if you go into Photoshop, Photoshop actually has settings for creating the right size. Well, I think that I just have a couple more things to show you, and then I'll close this out. Over in the bottom left-hand corner, besides just our regular project with all of our files here, there are a variety of other different options. So I have Media Browser, Info, Effects. Now there are others that you can't quite see here. There is a bar, hopefully you guys can see it, it's slightly highlighted just above those tabs. And if you slide that bar over, you get more panels. I'm going to select Effects, and I'm going to select Video Transitions. Just a quick transition to finish us off. I'm going to choose a video transition, and I'll choose a dissolve, and I'm going to add a dip to black, and I'm just going to click on that dip to black, and I'm going to add that to the end of my clip, my last St. Louis clip, so that it fades into the credits very nicely. And then I will also add a dip to black at the end of the credit picture so that that fades away nicely. And so now, last thing, I'm just going to play the whole video so you can see this. And it's not finished by any means, but we've got this nice little video of St. Louis that we can see. Very easy to put together. I could have also just brought in a whole bunch of pictures, and that would work here as well. You can do that. Now there are programs, if you're just doing pictures, there are a lot of other programs that'll do slideshows with pictures. But if you have videos and pictures and a whole bunch of things and you really want to do something nice, something professional looking, this is a great program to do it in. That being done, I'll go back to the media browser. Thanks for coming. Again, my name is Mel Wolverson with IT Training here at the University of Missouri.